My son abandoned me in a nursing home. He said I was a burden, so I made sure he learned what that really means. The room smelled faintly of lavender and old books. Evening light spilled through the half-drawn curtains, painting the floor in long golden stripes. The clock on the wall ticked softly, filling the silences between breaths. On the small wooden table beside the bed sat a cup of untouched tea, the kind that had long since gone cold, with a thin film gathering on the surface. Mara sat by the window in her wheelchair, her thin fingers folded neatly on her lap. Her hands were a map of time, wrinkled, veined, and soft, as if the years had written their history upon her skin. Her eyes, pale and tired, still held a glow, not of youth, but of something stronger. Memory. Across from her, on a little stool, sat her granddaughter, Lily. 7 years old, big brown eyes, hair like chestnut silk, and the sort of stillness that only children have when they sense something sacred is about to be said. "Grandma," Lily whispered, her voice like a tiny bell, "is it true that your son, my dad, left you here?" Mara smiled faintly. "He did, sweetheart. He said I was a burden." The words hung heavy in the room. The light dimmed a little, as if the sky outside had bowed its head in sympathy. "But," she continued, her voice steady, "I made sure he learned what that really means." Lily tilted her head, curious and confused. "What do you mean, Grandma?" Mara looked out the window for a long moment before answering. The sun was sinking now, melting into the horizon, and in that soft orange light, her face seemed younger, a silhouette carved from memory and sorrow. "Let me tell you a story," she said, "my story. The early days. I was born in a small town, the kind where everyone knew everyone else. Your great-grandfather worked the fields, and your great-grandmother sold bread at the market. We were poor but happy. When I was 17, I met Daniel, your grandfather. He had the kind of smile that could melt snow in winter. We married young, maybe too young. But when you love someone, you don't think of too young, you think of forever." Mara's eyes softened, the corners of her lips lifted as if she could still see him standing there. Tall, strong, with calloused hands that smelled of pine and oil. We built a life together, one brick at a time. He worked at the factory, I worked at home. Then came the war. She stopped. The clock ticked louder now. Daniel went away like so many others. He promised he'd come back. But promises are fragile things when the world is burning. Her eyes shimmered with old tears. "He never came home." Lily's small hand crept onto hers, warm and trembling. "I'm sorry, Grandma." Mara smiled, squeezing her hand gently. "So was I, sweetheart. So was I. A mother's battle. I was 24 when I found out I was carrying a piece of him inside me," Mara continued. "Your father." The flashback unfolded in her mind like an old film reel. The tiny apartment, the empty chair by the table, the letter folded on the bed that said "missing" in action. "I remember thinking, if I can't have Daniel, I'll keep his love alive through our child." She worked day and night, sewing clothes for the neighborhood, cleaning houses, doing whatever she could to keep the baby fed. When her son, Thomas, was born, she held him close and whispered, "You are my reason now." But it wasn't easy, she said, her tone growing heavy. "There were nights when I'd eat only bread so he could have milk. Winters when I'd wrap him in every blanket we owned and still watch his lips turn blue from the cold. But I didn't give up. I never gave up." She closed her eyes, remembering the feel of his small head against her chest, the smell of soap and sleep. When he smiled, everything was worth it. Sacrifice. The years turned. Mara worked harder than her body allowed. She took extra shifts at the textile mill, sold her wedding ring to buy Thomas a used bicycle, and later his college textbooks. "Your father was bright," she said with pride. "Too bright for a small town like ours. I wanted him to see the world I never could, so I sold the house, our little home, and sent him to the city." Lily's eyes widened. "You sold your house?" Mara nodded. "Yes, my dear. Sometimes love means giving away the only thing that still feels like home." Her gaze turned distant. "He didn't want to leave me. He said he'd work and send money back, but I told him no. I told him his future was my gift." For a while Thomas called every week. He told her about his classes, the city lights, the people who never slept. She would sit by the phone every Sunday at 6, waiting for that ring. But then, slowly, the calls stopped. First one missed Sunday, then 2, then months of silence. "I told myself he was busy," Mara said softly, "that he'd come home when he could. He didn't." The first goodbye. When Mara finally took a train to the city, she found him. Taller, older, dressed in a suit. There was pride in his eyes, But something else too, distance. He lived in a high-rise apartment with glass walls and cold floors. There were pictures of him shaking hands with people, smiling in rooms full of light, but no picture of her. He introduced me to his friends as my mother from the countryside. I could see the way they smiled, polite but awkward. I didn't belong in his world anymore. Her voice cracked slightly. That night I cooked for him, his favorite, stew with potatoes, just like I used to, but he barely touched it. He said it was too heavy. He ordered food instead. A pause. He kissed my cheek when I left. I didn't see him again for 10 years. The burden. By the time Thomas visited again, Mara's hands trembled when she tried to sew. Her knees hurt when she climbed the stairs. The little apartment was too quiet. He came in a sleek car wearing an expensive coat. His wife, Lily's mother, was gentle, kind, and quiet. They had a baby then. You, Mara said softly, touching Lily's cheek. You were just a tiny thing wrapped in pink. I remember that day, Mara continued. He said he'd found a place for me to stay, a home where people could take care of me. I told him I didn't need anyone to take care of me. I'd taken care of myself my whole life. She looked away. But he didn't listen. He said it wasn't safe for me to live alone anymore, that I'd be happier with people my age. Her voice turned fragile. What he meant was, I didn't fit into his life anymore. She smiled sadly. When he left me here, I stood by the window for hours, waiting to see if he'd turn the car around. He didn't. The real lesson. Silence filled the room again. Only the sound of the wind against the window pane and Lily's small breath. So, Lily whispered, is that why you said you made him learn what it means? Mara nodded, her eyes gleaming with something sharper now, not anger but resolve. Yes, she said quietly, because love isn't about convenience, it's about sacrifice, and sometimes people forget that until they have to face it themselves. She leaned back, her frail body outlined by the soft orange glow. I didn't shout, I didn't curse, I didn't tell him how much it hurt. I simply stopped calling, stopped answering his letters. When he finally realized I was gone, when the staff told him I'd transferred to a different facility, he panicked. He came looking for me. Her lips trembled with a small secret smile. I told the nurse to tell him that I'd passed away, that there was no forwarding address. Lily gasped. Grandma, you didn't. I did, Mara said softly, because sometimes the only way to teach someone the weight of a heart is to make them feel its absence. Her eyes misted. He came here 2 months later, broken, carrying flowers. He stayed in that garden outside for hours, crying into his hands. I watched from my window. I could have gone to him, but I didn't, not then. Redemption. The days that followed were quiet. For the first time in years, Mara felt peace. Not because she'd hurt him, but because she'd reminded him that love isn't guaranteed. One morning, she continued, a nurse came to me with a letter. No name, just a single line. I understand now, I'm sorry. She smiled. I knew it was from him. A year passed. Then one afternoon she heard footsteps in the hall, slow, hesitant. When she turned, he was standing there. Older, thinner, his eyes rimmed with regret. He knelt beside her and said, Mom, I'm here now, if you'll let me. Mara's voice quivered. And I did. Because forgiveness, Lily, isn't something you give when it's earned. It's something you give because love asks you to. Tears rolled down her cheeks. We talked for hours, about everything, about nothing. He started visiting every week. He brought you sometimes. You'd play with the other children while he read to me. She laughed softly. You always wanted to steal my cookies. Lily blushed. I still do. They both laughed then, the sound filling the room like music after a long silence. The lesson. The sun had almost set now. The sky was painted in lavender and gold, the kind of colors that make everything look like it's been dipped in memory. Grandma, Lily whispered, do you still think he was wrong? Mara thought for a moment. I think he was lost, she said finally. Sometimes the world teaches us to measure love in convenience, but love, real love, is messy, heavy, it demands patience and sacrifice. She brushed Lily's hair with trembling fingers. Your father forgot that for a while, but he found his way back. And what about you? Mara smiled, her gaze turning toward the fading light. I found peace because I learned something, too, that even when people leave, love doesn't. It lingers in the things we give, the stories we tell, the hands we hold. Lily squeezed her hand. I'll never leave you, Grandma. Mara chuckled, soft and tired. Oh, sweetheart, you will someday. You'll grow up and chase your dreams, and that's how it should be. Just promise me one thing. What? Don't ever let the people who love you become invisible. Lily nodded solemnly. I promise. The last light. Night had fully settled. The nurse peeked in and smiled gently. It's getting late, Mara. Just a few more minutes, she said softly. The nurse nodded and left. Mara turned back to Lily. There's something else I want you to know, she said. When I was young, I thought strength meant never breaking, but I was wrong. Strength is what you find when you've already broken. She looked at her granddaughter, her eyes so full of life. You'll face hard things, Lily. Everyone does. But don't ever close your heart, even when it hurts, especially then. Lily's eyes shone with unshed tears. Will you tell me more stories next time? Mara smiled, brushing her cheek. If the good Lord allows, I'll have 100 more. The epilogue. Weeks later, Thomas came again. He found his mother sleeping peacefully by the window, her hands folded in her lap, the evening sun wrapping her in gold. She never woke up, but beside her on the table was a letter addressed to him. He opened it slowly, his hands trembling. My dearest boy, you once called me a burden. Perhaps I was, but only because love, my love, was heavy, filled with all the things I carried for you so you wouldn't have to. I wanted you to understand that weight, to know what it means to bear someone's world in your arms, and I think you do now. Take care of Lily. Teach her that love isn't something to outgrow. And when you feel the sun on your face, think of me. I'll be there somewhere in that light, all my love, always. Mom, Thomas wept. Outside the window, the wind rustled through the trees. Soft, forgiving, he brought flowers to the garden she loved, the same place he had once cried thinking she was gone. This time he smiled, and in that fading light, as the sky burned orange and rose, he whispered, Thank you, Mom. Full circle. Years later, Lily sat by the same window in the nursing home. Older now, with silver in her hair and the same gentle eyes her grandmother once had, her grandson sat beside her, curious and bright. Grandma, he asked, is it true your father abandoned your grandma here? Lily smiled softly, looking out at the sunset. He did, but she forgave him, and that's how our family learned what love really means. The boy leaned against her arm, his small hand wrapping around her wrinkled fingers, a gesture passed down through generations. Outside, the evening light poured in, warm and nostalgic, as if time itself bowed in quiet reverence to the memory of a woman who had once loved so fiercely that even being forgotten could not erase her. And in that gentle light, it felt, for just a moment, as if Mara was still there, smiling.